Hello, and thank you again for joining our Amazon Web Services web series, Industry Innovators. Today we're going to talk about modernizing IT to optimize operations. My name is Greg Land. I'm the global leader for AWS in accommodations and lodging, casino, and cruise. So thank you for joining us. Joining me today for this discussion is Susan Carroll-Boser, the VP of Technology for White Castle, and also Chris Palomino, the Global IT Vice President for Meliá Hotels International. So thank you both very much for being here. Now, as I said today, we're going to talk about modernizing IT, but specifically for the purpose of optimizing operations and really innovating in your businesses. So I want to go back to when you first started your migration to AWS. And let's first talk a little bit about what was your company's initial reason or justification for moving to cloud? What were your expectations initially before you started down this journey? So Susan, why don't we start with you?
Thank you, Greg. For us, it had been a long time in coming. I mean, we had watched many of the larger companies around us moving into the cloud, and we had often thought about what we would need to do to optimize and really prepare for our future. And by the time, we started our journey, and we actually ended up partnering with AWS after spending a lot of time with other competitors. We realized that the velocity of things were really picking up fast, but we had done it for operational reasons. We were having other companies host our servers for us. We wanted to bring things in-house, become more efficient. Our original intentions were around being able to scale up and down fast, and faster than we could with current in-house hardware and on-premise solutions. And that's how we got here.
And have you recognized those benefits that you expected to?
Oh, absolutely. And even more so. I mean, some of the things that we didn't see coming as fast were the amount of data that we're exchanging with partners now and the velocity that has taken. That's actually been more of the driver now. And we're a restaurant company. I think almost everybody in the audience knows that, but we also do our own manufacturing. We have our own meat plants, bone plants, and frozen food plants. And we also sell our own frozen food in the grocery store. So we're also a consumer packaged goods company. And so we have so many customers and so many different levels of data that we exchange, from IoT data coming out of the plants to consumer data, and looking at consumer data platforms and tools across the board. So for us, I would say the last 5 years have been evolutionary, and I'm sure everyone in the audience probably feels that way as well.
Sure, yeah. So Chris, let's talk about your experience at Meliá Hotels International. What were your original reasons for wanting to move to cloud?
Hi, Greg, and thank you for having me here. I was appointed in charge of IT in 2013. And in 2014, in Meliá, we started our digital evolution, revolutionizing our digital channels, our relationship with the customer. And at a certain point, we found the bare bones of our legacy systems. I mean with that our cost per transaction was really high. It was really difficult to evolve our systems. The time to market was very high. And at the same time, we found that it was really difficult to attract young talent into the company for IT, because we were using legacy software, and young people doesn't want to get stuck in experience that won't increase their value in the market. So we decided to try to migrate to the cloud. And in 2020, we started the migration of our web channels and our CRS, our central reservation systems, which we finished at the beginning of this year.
And have you seen those benefits come to fruition as you've done major migration this past couple of years?
Certainly. I've heard a lot that reducing your costs when going into the cloud is a myth, and I can say that's not our case. We've had a 60% reduction of our total cost in our distribution. And that encompasses not only the infrastructure, which has a higher reduction, but also all the things that we have to add to the cloud in terms of security, governance, and change our culture and the way we work. So adding all that, we still have a reduction of 60% of the cost. At the same time, now it's much more easy to retain, attract new talent because it's much more appealing to people starting their career to come to work with microservices, with AWS, with Java, instead of working in COBOL in a mainframe and with legacy software. So I can say that we found or we achieved what we wanted and even more. Because one thing that we weren't looking for and we found is an increase in security. And I can put an example. For example, in last October, and it's public, we had a cyber attack. We suffered a cyber attack. It was focused in our hotels. All the hotels that were already in the cloud were really easy to recover. In 48 hours, they were working with all their processes. All the hotels that were still working in legacy systems that were on-premise needed 2 to 3 weeks to recover basic service, and a few weeks more to recover all of the services. So you need to change the way that you do security, but if you do it right, you get a more resilient environment.
That's great. No, and I'm glad you brought the point about skill set and talent, because I think that is something that people see as a barrier, having to retrain their staff, having to upskill their staff to get ready to maintain applications on the cloud. But I love that you saw it as an opportunity to modernize applications and attract younger, new talent to your IT workforce.
And I can even more. The people I had working with legacy systems have been reskilled to work with new systems. So their value in the market is much higher now. It's not that I want them to leave, but for them, it's been something great also, a great experience. And you guys have helped a lot with your certification and aiding with courses and reskilling the people.
You know, I want to add into what Chris said. I mean, that's huge for anybody who's thinking about this journey. If they're still on the early side of it, education, the AWS has excellent courses, certifications, but they also have immersion training if you're undergoing a really big initiative. And it really has meant the world to my team, and who don't always have the time to spend weeks and weeks self-learning to go through immersion training at all levels. So it's been really great for the people that were going to be on the path, but also the people that were not. We were able to bring people along to be part of the training that were not going to be directly involved as just part of their overall development. So it's actually been a good part of the journey.
That's great to hear, Susan. Thank you. Susan, let's go back to how you started optimizing your operations as you migrated to cloud. Give me a couple of examples where it really has changed the way you optimize or even scale your operations. You guys are a worldwide company, 101 years old, a lot of transformation takes place in a company that's 101 years old. So how has moving to cloud helped you kind of really optimize and change how you operate and get some efficiencies there as well?
It's funny. There's so many things that came through my mind when Chris was talking. I mean, the first thing was, so much has changed in the last 5 years around privacy and security, and it really allowed us to have a different posture around the information that we share with partners and control. I mean, we were giving up a lot of control prior to that on partners, and it ultimately, if you're responsible for the data, you have to be, having your hands on and controlling the security means a lot. I think the other piece that really going along with that is, and I said this a little bit, is a huge amount of partnerships that we are in now, where we have to exchange data very quickly. We need data lakes. We at one point believed we could sit on the side and collect data and have our partners do all the exchanges. And this is not the way of the world right now. We really do have to have centralization, and centralization is going to be us in many cases as the partner of choice for everyone. And AWS and having a platform that we can both have business continuity in, which is another thing that was a big operational thing for us, is more business continuity for disasters, just like Chris talked about. We've been lucky enough not to have that level of disaster, but we spent a lot of time with a lot of co-location centers, supporting and doing co-location in order to support our on-premise systems, right? And so the idea of the cloud as being business continuity centers is I think a very important thing that he mentioned. That's been part of our journey as well.
Any differences in how you've leveraged some of these new capabilities between your castles and like your meat plants and the retail side of your operations?
I think the biggest difference right now is the approaches on data. I mean, the plants are very much into, as plants should be, manufacturing should be, into IoT and manufacturing data and efficiencies and predictability. We're starting down the path with AWS to start learning predictive maintenance and other things for ourselves, as opposed to being reliant on partners to do that data modeling. We do have data people on our teams. It's just the focus. On the restaurant side, it's more people focused, believe it or not, and robot focused, finally, for the first time in restaurants to start. But, and manufacturing's been on that path for a very long time on the robotic side, as you know. So having two different parts of your business and two different growth patterns kind of is, I think, us growing as a company means meeting them, learning from both sides, right, and pulling them all together. And in the platforms that we're working in now, we're starting to really feel those areas merging together. The strengths of both are starting to become the strengths of the other. One of the innovations that we're working on at White Castle in our restaurants is with Miso Robotics. It's a product called Flippy. And Flippy is able to, it's not flipping anything for us, but he is working in our fryers and really helping finally bring a tool into our kitchen to help our team members manage what is overwhelming amount of sides that we put through our fryer and sandwiches that we put through our fryers. And we're partnering with Miso Robotics on the side of prediction for the products that are coming out of the smart freezer, and building up cloud instances of data and data exchanges to help actually tell Flippy exactly what to make ahead of time, so that we can actually do the quick part of QSR and stay fast in our speed of service, because it's really important in our industry to stay ahead of the projection and sales. And so we've been partnering and working on that. And that's where I see the different forms of technology innovation coming together: robotics, data. We all are going to be working on the cloud in the future. We all have to exchange data very quickly. We have to update data for them every hour. And that has to happen in the cloud. And that's why we had to go to the cloud. Sometimes I think people worry that when you do things like bring robotics into our castles, that that it's taking away from those team members. Those team members are already too busy. This is really giving them the time to spend more time with our customers and not be so rushed at the window or at the front counter, create memorable moments.
How about for you, Chris? Anything you can think of specific to how it's really helped you optimize operations, whether it's on the IT operation side or on the business operations side?
Well, I would say the whole movement into the cloud and working with AWS applied many levers for innovation inside the company and to gain efficiency. One of the great things when you move into the cloud, if you do it the right way and change your architecture properly, is that you start working with microservices. Once you start working with microservices, you can start playing with them like if they were Lego pieces. You can start taking a piece of your distribution system, taking another piece of your back of the house system in accountability or in administration, and start linking your incomes with your expenses and use the data from both places, as Susan was saying, which is very important, using data. So you can start playing and mixing things. And that forces innovation very much, because you guys talk a lot about the builders, and the people in IT start becoming builders. But not only the people in IT, also the people in the business that works very, very close to the people in IT, because we work in products, and products has a product owner. So the teams are made of a mix of IT and business. So they get the same culture and playground of things to try, and it's amazing how this fosters innovation in the corporate culture. At the same time, with the cloud, you have the possibility to fail cheap, and then if you succeed, scale very fast. So that Lego playing thing with I can try things, it's not going to cost a lot if we try this thing, but if it goes well, we'll be able to apply it everywhere very fast and at contained cost at the same time. It's also very, very interesting. And for example, we are doing that for the operations in our hotels, especially with the back of the house operations, when many of the things that people were doing at the hotels were repetitive tasks, like filling the room list with the customers that are arriving for an event, or making lists of things. All those things can be automated very easily, especially if you can start mixing a part of the CRS, your reservation systems, a part of your MICE system, then the PMS, which is the property management system. You can start mixing things. And what I said, try, and if it's successful for the hotel, then deploy it in all the hotels. So we actually have built a team, which we call the Digital Acceleration Office, which is made from people of the business, people from the back of the house, and or support shared services, and IT. And we go into the hotels, we try things. It's an amazing thing to do, and the business appreciate that very, very much.
That's fantastic. So we're here today to talk about industry innovation, right? And how cloud is enabling that. So Susan, let's start with you. Let's talk a little about something that White Castle has done in an innovative way, or it could be something you're currently rolling out or currently working on. And it can be a business innovation, it can be an IT innovation, and it can be from any of your lines of business. But share with us something that this has enabled you to do where you're really innovating your business with something new.
I think, for us, one of the things that's really changed during COVID was on the grocery. Obviously, we were impacted on the restaurant side negatively, and on the grocery store side, very positively. And that meant our manufacturing facilities really had to hit on all cylinders to keep up, could not keep up. We did not have the capacity, and we can't afford to be down. So the focus that we've spent in the last year and a half has been around, alone really getting more digitized around IoT of the devices that are in the plants to help them with their efficiency, even though they have amazing efficiency in our plants. We're really starting down the path of predictability of machine maintenance, which sounds extremely boring, but we can't afford to be down ever, right? Right now, everything that's coming off the line is being sold, and every time a machine goes down, we've lost. So that idea of trying to be innovative in this area, right? On one hand, we're doing very basic things around digitizing OEE for them and with partners, looking at AWS as a way to help understand that and help with quality as well. On the restaurant side, I think it's really about the consumer journey, and that's what's really changing. We partner on the manufacturing side with operations and marketing, especially on the restaurant side, very deeply, and looking at getting the right customer journey and the right customer data platform up so that we can actually just get hold of all this data that we have. Privacy's changed a lot in the last 2 years, and will continue with things that are happening around tracking to change our ability for marketing to be able to tie out success, but also reach our customers during their journey. And I think getting on the platforms and actually connecting to partners faster and more agilely to actually find the right mix has been a very important part in allowing us. We couldn't do this if we were relying on other partners to be the center for us. We have to be the center of that journey.
You mentioned predictive maintenance is boring. I think with this audience, that is not boring at all. Predictive maintenance is important to travel and hospitality in so many ways.
And so it really when you lose a day in a plant, it really becomes extremely obvious. But prediction is not just about, it could also be about people. I mean, we look at predicting customer churn. I know everybody in the audience probably understands that companies do that. They don't want to lose a customer. They want to make sure to win them back and all the other things that go along with it. It's the same thing with our teams. All of us are having trouble with our staffs, finding out what makes them happy, what makes them unhappy. And sometimes you can use data to make better decisions around making them happy and help keep them. And so that's another journey that we're on that's universal across the whole company, is making sure that our teams are happy and that we find the right mix of things that we can do to stay proactive and prescriptive and have the best environment for them.
For this travel and hospitality audience that we're with today, I mean, predictive maintenance can mean huge innovative change, whether it's an airline, an airport, a hotel, a restaurant, a cruise line. If you have interruption in your business from a system going down, that means check-ins can't happen. Airplanes can't get boarded. You can't check people out at the register for a restaurant. So, I think for this audience, it's incredibly important, and it's something that everybody's looking at. So it's great to hear that your migration to cloud has helped accelerate that, because I think irregular operations and downtime are a big issue, and it translates directly into customer satisfaction, as well as the point you made, employee satisfaction. It's incredibly frustrating for employees, but it means customers aren't getting served. It means customers aren't boarding airplanes or being able to check into a hotel room. So I think it's a really big focal point right now. And I think everybody's looking for innovative ways to address that area of irregular operations and downtime. So that's great to hear. Chris, let's talk about the hotel world. Where are you looking to innovate now that you've gotten past your initial migration? You've had this great cost savings. You've got all this extra money now to reinvest in innovation. So where is Meliá Hotels looking to invest some in innovating now beyond cloud migration?
Well, we have many plans in many aspects of our operations, but I would start saying that you guys are helping us to innovate. I don't know if everybody's familiar with the digital innovation programs you guys have, but one thing that I found great of AWS is that you guys share the way you innovate. So to your customers, you help us to innovate the same way you innovated and brought the Kindle in Amazon into the market, and the AWS itself is an innovation made by Amazon. So we now use the same process because we used it to tackle two processes. One is the check-in process in our comfort hotels, where sometimes 3 or 4 buses of tourists guests arrive at the same time. We're talking about the 3-star hotels, more or less. So you may find yourself with a long queue of people waiting to check in at the same time. So you guys helped us to innovate in that aspect. It's something we are working on, and also in the way we engage the customer in our sustainability programs, because we are concerned that all the effort we do to pay back to the locations where we are based sounds like a storytelling to the customer, but they don't really feel it. So we are looking into ways to make them part of the whole sustainable experience, and to be able to see what they are doing and how they are helping. And looking into the operations, we are also using this kind of approach to see how we can leverage on machine learning and artificial intelligence to be able to forecast our P&L in the hotels, to improve the forecasting process, and also to predict the demand we are going to have. All the revenue management and all the pricing of the rooms in the hotels are based on the demand. So if we are able to predict the demand we are going to have in a certain moment in a certain hotel, we will be able to also optimize revenues. So we're working both on the cost. We are working on the incomes. We're working on the customer experiences. We are tackling everything with innovation. And as I said, it's very helpful to do it with the cloud once you are there, and at the same time to have a process to do it properly.
That's great. And thank you for highlighting our digital innovation program. I think it is a great program that helps all of our customers innovate and accelerate that innovation and transform their businesses once they are on cloud. Now, Chris, I think the other big lesson we all learned throughout the pandemic was we all needed to be more agile, and we all needed to make our businesses and our ITs more resilient. And Chris, have you seen a difference in just agility and resilience and how quickly you're able to move on some of the innovation as well by being on cloud?
Certainly. And there's a story I always like to tell about the first 3 months of the pandemic, which was the hardest time for the industry and for everyone in the world. One of the things we did when we were zero sales is to give 20,000 room nights to the healthcare professionals here in Spain. So we release 2,000 room nights every day, and the healthcare professional had to log into our website in a certain page and make the reservation. So it was like a normal sale, but you had to be a healthcare professional and you just could book for 2 nights. What we found is that we were able to first cut our costs very much because we were in the cloud, not 100% at that moment, but we were very much advanced into the cloud. So we could cut our costs and at the same time respond to the highest peak of demand we ever had. We were able to sell 2,000 room nights at cost zero in 2 minutes, 8 seconds. That was the limit. And we reached it because it was, the first day was like 2 minutes and 20 seconds. And we found some things we could improve. And then second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, 1 minute, 8 seconds, 2,000 room nights gone. And it's a very beautiful story on how you can relate your IT cost to the business demand, and you can very clearly see it. So it's been tough times, but at the same time, we can now tell our chief financial officers, okay, you see that business case I made about going into the cloud, that if we went down into our demand, we will be able to cut our costs. It happens, and they've seen it.
Yeah, no, and especially right now as travel does ramp back up, to have that capability under your belt is fantastic, because I know everybody's challenged with labor shortages and getting people back into the workforce. So to have those types of capabilities are significant for you, especially Chris. So Susan, so what next for White Castle? You've made some great leaps here. You're doing some cool stuff with IoT on predictive maintenance. What's next for White Castle and your journey into cloud?
Definitely going to spend a tremendous amount of time thinking about our CDP, consumer data platform choices over the next year. I think for us, when we went into COVID, we were very lucky that all of our users had laptops that were office type people. And we were able to pretty much agilely move out of our buildings and work from home. We had the security and everything set up that was perfect for it. What we're not perfect for is the movement of the old legacy hardware that we have the back of house, looking at moving to the cloud for the back of house desktop. And, what is the right solution for them? We always do need a presence. They do need resources. Laptop's not the best solution for them, but also not having a lot of work out there is the best solution for them for maintenance or patching or all the other things you do with having that big of an instance. And so that idea of moving in that direction over the next couple of years as that equipment has aged for them. Also looking at, beyond that, looking at the other partnerships that we need to for backups, all the security things that you need. We just have to keep, as an industry, we have to keep moving. The people that are attacking our industry keep moving and keep innovating themselves. So we have to keep innovating in security and recovery, which is just as important as security.
Yeah. Chris, how about for Meliá Hotels? What's next for you?
Well, as I said before, we are very focused on using machine learning and artificial intelligence throughout most of our processes. Very focused on revenue management because we think we can do great things there, especially on the demand prediction. And also we are moving all the back of our house, which is based on an ERP, onto AWS this year. We are also moving our contact center into the cloud. So at the end of 2022, 100% of our processes will be supported by the cloud. We won't have anything on premise, which is great because we will be able to use everything with microservices. We will be able to escalate everything and start playing with all the pieces of the architecture.
So let's shift and talk a little bit about sustainability. I mean, we've seen sustainability really bubble back up to the top of priorities for a lot of our customers in travel and hospitality as we're coming out of the pandemic and starting to look forward towards the future. It's important for everybody in our industry, right? So I think the fact that both of your companies have migrated to AWS Cloud, you're getting a sustainable benefit right there. It's what we refer to as sustainability on the cloud. And it's just the idea that you've gotten rid of all that hardware and infrastructure We're managing it more efficiently for you. And every year we drive energy efficiencies and energy utilization efficiencies in our data centers. So you're contributing to sustainability efforts just by being on AWS cloud. But then there's what we call sustainability through the cloud. And that's using these new capabilities that you now have access to through the cloud and through AWS to look at ways you can drive sustainability programs in your business. So Chris, let's look at Meliá hotels. I mean, hotels, this is a big topic at hotels right now. How are some of the ways you're working with AWS going to drive some new efforts around sustainability for Meliá hotels and for your properties specifically?
Well, I would say, and I was talking about the innovation program we're doing for letting our customers know how they're helping to make their experience more sustainable when they are in their hotels. That's something very important to us because they are the motion force of everything happening in the hotel. We are very customer focused, and I think that's something we share with you guys as the sustainability approach to doing business. So that is one thing where we are working, but for that we need to know very well what's going on in the hotel in terms of energy, water consumption, whatever chemics we are throwing for cleaning towels and things. So mixing all that data from the properties to first have from a global perspective knowledge of what's going on, and at the same time being able to communicate to the customer how this is evolving is something that we are working now with you guys, and at the same time also the aspect of removing paper for the hotels using all the things we are automating with our cloud architecture. When we are connecting things, we are removing many friction in processes and removing paper and making a much faster approach to the digital work for our employees.
Yeah. No, I mean, hotels have had these programs for several years that are guest-facing programs where you leave the card on your bed and we don't change your sheets, or hang your towel and we don't wash your towel. And it was all about driving energy and water conservation, but we didn't have ways to really measure, was that incrementally reducing those power usage? So it's great now that with your properties being all connected to the cloud, you now can start capturing that data. I know we're working with your chief sustainability officer on this. So I think it does help contribute to an overall sustainability effort for your hotel. So that's fantastic. Susan, anything in this space that you're seeing with White Castle?
Well, sustainability is very important to our company. But when I think of sustainability, I think of efficiency. If we are running efficiently and we stay running efficiently, we are being as sustainable as we can be. I think for us, I mentioned the IoT stuff. I think even on the restaurant side, knowing that all the equipment that we have is running efficiently, starting to capture that data. It's just a huge amount of data. And I think it's been a little overwhelming until the last few years of being able to put your arms around it without a lot of partners. The other piece that goes with that beyond sustainability is also productivity. I mean, we have a whole bunch of machines that we really do not know, if you think about a restaurant as being machines, how productive they're being used. We look at all of our metrics around speed of service and around all the different consumer touch points that we have, but we don't pay attention to our machines as much as we could. And it could just be training utilization that we're having problems with in either manufacturing or in the restaurants. And so all of those things together contribute to knowing that we're running too much water in this plant, or that we're doing too much of something in our restaurants, and it's gonna contribute to more efficiently ran restaurants and plants, and that will be better for the environment. So yeah, it's very important to us. We have sustainability. We've been down the path of sustainability IoT. I think we've shied away from it from a cost standpoint, but once we're taking it in ourselves, it becomes a little bit more cost neutral from that standpoint. So I definitely see it as on our path as well.
Chris, anything on your side that you want to highlight that we maybe missed in your responses?
Well, I would say that one of the great things we are seeing in our hotels is that by automating most of the bureaucracy or processes the staff does in the hotels, they can focus on the customer. They can do the relationship. They can do the human relationship with other customers, which is the great thing about being in a resort and enjoying your stay there. Having someone that gives you the warmth of having a person in front of you, but removing all the friction and removing all the bureaucracy and rest of the processes that the staff needs to do right now.
No, I love both those stories because it just highlights the point that people think technology is about replacing the human effort in the process. But I think when you think about travel and hospitality, the technology in these two cases really are all about freeing up the human staff to really work in those areas where something needs to be emoted to the customer, or where you really have an exception that they need to engage person to person. So it really is the best combination of high tech and high touch. So I love that. So great session. Thank you so much. Thank you, Susan and White Castle. Thank you, Chris and Meliá Hotels International. I think this has been a great discussion about how migrating to cloud and modernizing IT really does help you innovate faster and help you optimize your operations. So thanks everyone for joining our series today. We appreciate it and hope to see you on the road soon.